I was 16 when my dad died. At 32, I married my stepmother's son to destroy her. I'm writing this at 3:47 a.m. because I can't sleep. Because my son is asleep in the next room, and my husband packed his bags 3 hours ago and I don't know if he's coming back. And I just got a text from my stepmother that says, "Harold knows everything. He's leaving me. Are you happy?" I haven't answered. I don't know if I will, but I need to tell this somewhere. I need someone to know what I did, what she did first, what I became. Because here's the thing nobody tells you about revenge. It doesn't feel like the movies. It feels like being hungry for so long that you forget what full feels like, and then one day you eat, and you're still hungry, but now you also feel sick. My dad died of a heart attack on a Tuesday. I was 16. I found him in the garage. He was supposed to drive me to school. I remember the coffee cup still in his hand, the way the liquid had spilled and made this dark stain on the concrete that looked like a shadow of something that used to be there. I remember screaming. I remember my voice didn't sound like my voice. I remember thinking, this isn't real, this is a prank. Dad's gonna get up and laugh at me for falling for it. He didn't get up. My stepmother, Linda, came running. She'd been married to my dad for 4 years. She was the one who called 911. She was the one who held me while I screamed. She was the one who, 3 days later, at the kitchen table with a lawyer I didn't recognize, told me there was no will. "Your father and I talked about it," she said. She was wearing black. She looked like she'd lost weight already, like grief had started eating her from the inside. "We were going to do it next month. We thought we had time." I was 16. I didn't know anything about probate. I didn't know that without a will, everything goes to the spouse. I didn't know that the house I'd grown up in, the house my mom had died in, the house where every wall had memories of her, was now legally Linda's. I just knew I was alone. "You'll always have a home here," Linda said. She hugged me. She smelled like the lavender soap my mom used to buy, which I thought was a coincidence then. I don't think it was now. That was March. By June, she was dating. By August, she was engaged. By September, she told me I needed to start thinking about my future because she was redecorating and my room was going to be a nursery. I remember standing in that room. The walls were still the pale blue my mom had painted them when I was 8. There were still pencil marks on the doorframe where Dad had measured my height every birthday. Linda wanted to paint it yellow. She wanted to put a crib where my bed was. "I thought I could stay until college," I said. She sighed. She did this thing where she looked at me like I was exhausting her, like I was this problem she was trying to solve. "Honey, you're almost 17. You're practically an adult. And honestly, the way you've been acting, the attitude, the sulking, it's not healthy for anyone." I didn't have an attitude. I was grieving. I was a child who'd lost both parents in 4 years and was being told to get over it because it was inconvenient. But I didn't know how to say that. I just stood there with my hands shaking, looking at the pencil marks on the doorframe. "Your father's lawyer said the house is mine," she said. "I'm being more than fair. I'm giving you 2 weeks. 2 weeks." In 2 weeks, I packed everything I could fit into a duffel bag and a backpack. I took the photo albums because Linda didn't want them. So depressing. And my mom's jewelry box, which had somehow ended up in Linda's closet. I didn't take the pencil marks. I couldn't take the walls. I slept in my car for the first 3 nights. It was October. It was cold. I remember waking up at 4 a.m. because I couldn't feel my toes and thinking, this is what she wanted. She wanted me gone. Then I found a 24-hour diner. I found a manager who let me sit in the corner booth if I bought coffee every 2 hours. I found a night shift at a warehouse, loading boxes, $11 an hour cash under the table because I wasn't old enough to work full-time legally. I finished high school by taking day classes and working 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I showered at a YMCA. I ate 1 meal a day. I lost 20 pounds. I got a UTY that I couldn't afford to treat, so I just drank water until it went away, which took 3 weeks and probably damaged something. But I graduated. I got into community college. I transferred to a state school. I got a degree in accounting because I figured I need to understand money. I need to understand what she took from me. I didn't understand yet, not really. I need to explain Linda, because this isn't just about a woman who married a grieving man. It's about a woman who selected him. Linda met my dad at a grief support group. My mom had died of ovarian cancer when I was 12. Dad was destroyed. I was destroyed. We were this little broken unit holding each other together, and then Linda came along with her lavender soap and her sympathetic nods and her stories about how she lost her first husband to a car accident. She was 42. Dad was 48. She was pretty in this careful way, like she'd spent a lot of time figuring out exactly how to be pretty without threatening anyone. Soft voice, soft hands. Always touching Dad's arm when she talked to him, like she needed to remind him she was there. I didn't hate her at first. I wanted to. I tried to. But she was nice. She remembered my birthday. She asked about school. She didn't try to be my mom, which I appreciated because nobody could be my mom. But looking back, I see the cracks. I see how she always managed to be in the room when Dad talked about money. I see how she helped him organize his files, how she suggested they put the house in both names for tax reasons. I see how she made sure she was on every account, every policy, every document. I see how, after they married, Dad stopped talking about his will. He used to joke about it. "When I go, kiddo, everything's yours. Don't spend it all on shoes." He stopped joking. I thought it was because he was happy because he didn't want to think about dying now that he had Linda. I think she told him it was morbid. I think she told him they had time. They didn't have time. And here's the thing that keeps me up at night. I think she knew that. I think she married a man who was grieving and vulnerable and slightly older, and she set herself up to inherit everything, and she played the long game so well that nobody questioned it. When I was living in my car, I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself she was just a woman who fell in love with my dad and got lucky with timing. I told myself I was the villain in her story, this sullen teenager who couldn't accept her father's new wife. But then I'd remember the coffee cup, the way it spilled, the way Dad was in the garage at 6:45 a.m. on a Tuesday, dressed for work, coffee still full, like he'd just stepped out there for a minute and something stopped him. The coroner said heart attack, natural causes. No autopsy because Linda didn't want one because she was the spouse and she had the right to refuse, and what was the point anyway? He was 52, slightly overweight, stressed. It happened. I was 16. I didn't know you could question these things. I didn't know that a 46-year-old woman marrying a grieving man and inheriting everything 4 years later was a pattern. I didn't know anything. I just knew I was cold. I knew I was hungry. I knew that every night when I closed my eyes in the back seat of my 2008 Honda Civic, I saw Linda's face when she told me I had 2 weeks. That expression, not cruel, not angry, just done. Like I was a chore she'd finished. I finished college at 22. I got a job at a mid-sized accounting firm in the city. I made $45,000 a year, which felt like millions after sleeping in a car. I got an apartment, a real apartment with a bed and a shower I didn't have to share with strangers. I bought a plant. I named it Dad, which is morbid, and I know that, but I talked to it. I told it about my day. I was functional. I was fine. I was this successful story of resilience, the girl who overcame, who pulled herself up. But I wasn't fine. I was this walking scab, this person who looked normal but was constantly, quietly, underneath everything, furious. And I didn't know what to do with it. The first time I saw Linda after I left, I was 24. I was at a grocery store in the suburbs, the fancy one with the organic produce and the cheese counter, and I was buying wine because it was Friday and I was trying to be a person who did things like buy wine on Fridays. I turned a corner, and there she was. She looked different. Older, she was 50 then, but also softer, richer. She was wearing this cream-colored sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and she was examining avocados like they were important. I froze. I actually froze, standing there with a bottle of $12 Cabernet in my hand, staring at this woman who'd made me homeless. She looked up. She saw me. Her face went through this series of expressions I can still replay: confusion, recognition, shock. Then this smooth, practiced warmth. "Oh my God," she said. "Sarah?" I should have walked away. I should have thrown the wine at her. I should have done anything except what I did, which was stand there and let her hug me. She smelled the same. Lavender. That soap. It made me want to scream and cry and vomit all at once. "You look wonderful," she said, holding my shoulders, looking at me like she was proud. "I heard you graduated college. I'm so happy for you. You're so happy for me." Like she hadn't been the reason I had to fight for that degree. Like she hadn't taken my home and my money and my safety and given me 2 weeks to process my father's death. "Thanks," I said. My voice sounded weird, distant. "How are you?" "Oh, wonderful. I remarried, did you know? Harold. He's lovely. We live in the house, actually. We renovated it completely. You wouldn't recognize it." You wouldn't recognize it because she'd erased it, because she'd painted over the blue walls and removed the pencil marks and turned my mother's home into something else. "That's great," I said. "We should catch up," she said. "I always felt terrible about how things ended. You were so young, so emotional. I didn't know how to handle it. I hope you understand." I understood. I understood perfectly. She was rewriting history, making it my fault, making herself the victim of my emotionality. "Sure," I said. "We should catch up." I didn't mean it. I was lying. But something in me, some cold, hard thing that had been growing since I was 16 said wait. Wait and see. I got her number. I threw away the wine. I drove home and sat in my apartment and stared at my plant, Dad. And I said, I saw her, and I didn't kill her. The plant didn't answer. Plants don't. But I kept thinking about that interaction, the way she'd looked at me, this mixture of guilt and superiority, the way she'd said, "You were so young, so emotional like that, justified everything." The way she'd mentioned the house, my house, like it was a fun renovation project. I started looking into her. I told myself it was healthy closure. I was just curious. I found her Facebook. Her new husband, Harold, was some kind of semi-retired executive. They traveled. They had a boat. They posted photos of dinner parties in my dining room, the one where my dad used to make pancakes on Sundays, now with a chandelier that probably cost 5 figures. I found her son, Derek. Derek was 26. He was Linda's son from her first marriage, the one where her husband died in a car accident. I'd met him a few times when Dad was alive. He'd visit for holidays, this quiet, awkward guy who always seemed uncomfortable around our family's grief. He was older than me by 6 years. He lived in the city. He worked in IT. I found his LinkedIn, his Instagram, his Twitter, which he barely used. He was normal, boring even. He posted about video games and hiking and this cat he fostered. He was also, I realized, Linda's only child, her only family, the person she talked about in her Facebook posts, the one she was so proud of. I looked at his photo for a long time. He had Linda's eyes, that same careful, pretty quality. And I thought, what if... I don't know when the thought became a plan. It wasn't immediate. It was this slow, creeping thing like mold. I'd be at work, running numbers, and I'd think about Derek. I'd be at the gym, and I'd imagine running into him. I'd be in the shower, and I'd picture Linda's face if I showed up at her door with her son. I told myself I was crazy. I told myself to let it go. I had a life. I had a job. I had my plant and my wine and my Friday nights, but I also had this anger, this constant, burning, freezing anger that never went away, that made me cry in my car after work, that made me punch my pillow until my knuckles hurt, that made me stare at Linda's Facebook photos and feel like I was drowning. I was 25, I was alone, I was angry, and I was about to become something I didn't recognize. I ran into Derek at a coffee shop near his office. I'd been going there for 3 weeks, waiting, watching, hating myself, and unable to stop. He was exactly like his online presence, quiet, a little awkward, nice in this unthreatening way. He was reading a book about some fantasy series I'd never heard of. I asked about it. He lit up. We talked for 20 minutes. I told him I was an accountant. I told him I liked hiking. I told him I was new to the city, which was a lie. I'd been there 4 years, but it gave us something to talk about. Places to go, trails to try. We went hiking that weekend. He was slow, careful, constantly checking if I was okay. He brought extra water and snacks and a first aid kit he didn't need. He talked about his cat, his job, his mom. "She's remarried," he said as we sat on a rock overlooking the valley. "To this guy Harold. He's fine, I guess. A little boring, but she seems happy." "Do you see her often?" I asked. My voice was casual. I was proud of how casual I sounded. "Every Sunday. Dinner. It's this thing we do. She cooks, I eat, we talk about our week." He smiled. "She's a good mom. Overprotective, maybe, but she means well." She means well. This woman who threw out a grieving child. This woman who took everything and erased everything and called it fair. "That's nice," I said. "I lost my mom young. I always envied people with that." It was true. It was also calculated. I could see him soften, see this sympathy kick in. "I'm sorry," he said. "That's hard." "Yeah," I said, "it is." We started dating. I want to be clear about this. I didn't fake everything. Derek was genuinely kind. He was genuinely steady. He was the kind of person who remembered how you took your coffee and texted to make sure you got home safe. He was boring, yes, but in this way that felt like safety, like a door you could close and know nobody would break through. I liked him. I hate admitting that, but I did. I liked his carefulness. I liked that he didn't play games. I liked that when I cried, when I let myself cry, which was rare and always about my dad, he just held me and didn't try to fix it. But I also used him. I used every interaction. I learned about Linda's schedule, her habits, her fears. I learned that Harold traveled for business twice a month. I learned that Linda was paranoid about security, that she had cameras, that she kept important documents in a safe. I learned that Derek was loyal, fiercely, blindly loyal to his mother. That was the thing that scared me, that made me wake up at night next to him and think, "What are you doing? This is insane. This will destroy you both." But then I'd remember the car, the cold, the way my hands shook when I counted out cash for coffee at the diner, the way I got that UTI and just drank water for 3 weeks because I couldn't afford a doctor, the way I graduated high school with no one in the audience because I had no one, and I'd think, she deserves this. She deserves worse. We dated for a year. Derek asked me to move in. I said yes. He asked me to meet his mom. I said yes. The dinner was at my house, the house Linda had taken, the house she'd renovated so I wouldn't recognize it. She recognized me. I saw it in her face when she opened the door. That same sequence. Confusion, recognition, shock. But this time, no practiced warmth. This time, something colder. "Sarah," she said, "Derek didn't tell me it was you." "Small world," I said. I smiled. I was so proud of that smile. Dinner was tense. Linda was polite, but I could see her watching me, calculating, trying to figure out my angle. Harold was oblivious, talking about golf. Derek was happy, holding my hand, proud to introduce his girlfriend. I was charming. I was perfect. I asked about the renovation, complimented the chandelier, mentioned how different everything looked. "Sarah used to live here," Linda told Harold. Her voice was light. "When she was young, before her father passed." Before her father passed. like it was a gentle thing, like I hadn't found him, like she hadn't given me 2 weeks. That must have been hard, Harold said, genuinely sympathetic. It was, I said. I looked at Linda. But you learned to adapt. You learned to survive. Linda's smile didn't reach her eyes. After dinner, in the kitchen, she cornered me. Derek and Harold were in the living room, watching sports. "What are you doing?" she asked. Her voice was low, sharp. "Why Derek?" "I love him," I said. The lie came easy. Maybe it wasn't entirely a lie. I don't know anymore. "You need to leave him." "Why? Because you say so? You don't get to tell me what to do anymore, Linda. You lost that right when you kicked me out of my home." She grabbed my arm, hard. "This is my family, my son. You stay away from him." I looked at her hand on my arm. I looked at her face. And I felt this strange, cold calm. "Or what?" I asked. "You'll tell him I used to live here? That you made me homeless? Go ahead, tell him everything. I'm sure he'll understand why his mother threw out a 16-year-old orphan." She let go. She stepped back. I could see her thinking, calculating, realizing I had her. Because Derek didn't know. Of course he didn't. Linda had rewritten that story too. She was the hero, the grieving widow who'd tried to help a troubled stepdaughter. I was the villain, the emotional teenager who'd run away. I walked back to the living room. I sat next to Derek. I held his hand. And I felt Linda's eyes on me the entire night. She didn't tell him. She didn't say anything. And I knew in that moment that I had her. Derek proposed 8 months later, at the same hiking spot where we'd had our first real conversation. He'd planned this whole thing, picnic, champagne, the ring he'd saved for 6 months. I said yes. I said yes because I was still angry. I said yes because I wanted to see Linda's face when she found out. I said yes because somewhere, in the part of me that was still that cold, hungry girl in the car, I needed to win. But I also said yes because Derek was good. Because when I was with him, I wasn't angry. I was just Sarah. The person I might have been if my dad hadn't died, if Linda hadn't taken everything, if the world had been fair. I was 28. I was engaged. I was about to become part of the family of the woman who destroyed my life. Linda tried to stop it. She told Derek I was unstable, that I had issues with her that were delusional, that I was using him. She didn't tell him why. She couldn't, without admitting what she'd done. Derek defended me. He told her I was the best thing that had happened to him. He said she was being paranoid, that her overprotectiveness was out of control. They fought. I listened from the other room, this strange mixture of triumph and sickness in my stomach. We got married at the courthouse. Small, just us and 2 friends. Linda wasn't invited. Derek was sad about that, but he understood. He thought it was because she didn't approve of me. He didn't know it was because I couldn't stand to have her witness my victory. After the wedding, we started trying for a baby. That was part of the plan, too. I knew Linda wanted grandchildren. She'd posted about it, this subtle pressure on Derek, the "when are you giving me grandkids" comments. I got pregnant on purpose. I timed it. I tracked everything. I wanted to be pregnant when I made my move because I wanted her to know what she was losing. But here's the thing I didn't expect. I wanted the baby. Not as a weapon, as a person, as this thing that was half me and half Derek, this proof that I could create something good, even after everything. I was 3 months pregnant when I started looking for the will. I knew it existed. Dad had told me again and again, everything's yours. He wasn't a man who forgot things. He was organized, careful. He'd worked in insurance. He understood the importance of documents. Linda had said there was no will, but Linda lied. I started with Dad's old lawyer, dead. Cancer, 3 years after Dad. His practice dissolved, records scattered. I spent 3 weekends driving to storage facilities, calling former paralegals, begging for access. Nothing. Then I found a reference in Dad's old emails, an account I still had the password to. that Linda never knew existed. A thank you note to a notary. Appreciate you fitting us in last minute, George. Linda was nervous, but you made it easy. George, a notary, in our town. I searched records, found a George Halloway, notary public, retired 2015, moved to Florida. I called information. I found a number. An old woman answered, said George had died 2 years ago. I hung up and cried in my car for 20 minutes, not because I was sad, but because I was so angry I couldn't see straight. Then I remembered. Notaries keep journals, by law, forever. Or at least they're supposed to. I hired a PY, not some movie guy, an actual retired cop named Mike, who smelled like cigarettes and had a website that looked like it was built in 2003. I gave him everything I had, $5,000 up front, another $5,000 when he found something. He called me after 6 weeks. Got something, not what you expected. George Halloway had kept a journal, all his life, in a storage unit in Tampa, where his daughter had dumped everything after he died. Mike found it by calling every storage facility in a 50-mile radius, pretending to be a debt collector. The journal had entries, dates, signatures. Dad's will was there, recorded in George's handwriting. William Chen, last will and testament, witnessed by myself and Patricia Halloway, 2012. But there was a second entry, 2014, 2 years later. Linda Chen, revocation of prior will, witnessed by myself. Mike had talked to George's daughter. She remembered her father being upset about that second meeting. He said the lady was pushy. He said the husband didn't seem to know what was happening, but he was old. He needed the money. He didn't ask questions. I had the journal entries. I had Mike's report. I had enough to prove Linda had coerced a dying notary into falsifying records. But I didn't have the will itself. Without the original, a judge might say the journal was circumstantial. I needed more. I spent another $8,000 on lawyers, on court filings to unseal Dad's probate records, on forensic document examiners who looked at Linda's handwritten note and said it was consistent with her writing but not conclusive. I was hemorrhaging money. I was pregnant. I was working full-time and pretending everything was fine and researching forgery statutes at 2 a.m. Then I found it. In Dad's old email, the one Linda didn't know about, there was a draft, unsent, addressed to his sister, my Aunt Margaret, who died in 2016. Marg finally got the will done. Linda wasn't happy about it, thinks it's morbid, but I wanted to make sure Sarah's taken care of. Send a copy to your place for safekeeping. You know how she gets about paperwork. A copy. At Aunt Margaret's. I called Margaret's son, my cousin David. We hadn't spoken in years. I explained, haltingly, what I was looking for. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Mom's boxes are in my basement. I've never gone through them. I can look." 3 days later, he sent me a photo. A manila envelope. Last Will and Testament of William Chen. Postmarked 2012. I had it. I had the original. I had proof that Linda had destroyed my father's wishes and stolen my inheritance. I sat in my apartment, 6 months pregnant, holding that envelope, and I cried until I threw up. Then I called my lawyer. I didn't file the lawsuit, not yet. I spent the next 3 months planning. I was 32. I was 7 months pregnant. I was about to become a mother, and I was also about to become the kind of person who uses her own child as leverage. I told myself I wasn't doing that. I told myself I was protecting my son's future. I told myself Linda had started this, and I was just finishing it. But I also knew, in the part of me that was still human, that I was crossing a line, that there was no going back from what I was planning. I waited until I was 8 months pregnant. I waited until Derek was at a conference in Seattle. I waited until Harold was on one of his business trips because I didn't want him there. I didn't know Harold. I didn't care about Harold. But I didn't want to witness. I went to Linda's house at 10 a.m. on a Thursday. I let myself in with the key she'd given me, grandmother's privilege, she called it. I sat in the living room, the one with the chandelier, and I waited. She came home from yoga at 11. She saw me. Her face went still. "Sarah, what are you doing here?" I didn't stand. I didn't raise my voice. I just opened the envelope and laid the will on the coffee table between us. "I found Dad's will," I said. "The real one, from 2012. Everything to me. You were supposed to hold it in trust until I was 21. She went pale. Actually pale. I could see the blood leave her face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. I have the original. I have the notary's journal where he recorded your revocation in 2014. I have a PY who documented that you pressured an 80-year-old man with memory issues. I have a lawyer ready to file criminal charges today. Forgery, fraud, theft. You're looking at prison, Linda. Real prison. Not country club. Real." She sat down. Hard, like her legs wouldn't hold her. "Please," she said. "Sarah, please. I was scared. I didn't have money. I didn't know what to do. Your dad was everything to me, and then he was gone and I was alone and I panicked." "You were scared," I repeated. "You were scared, so you made a 16-year-old homeless. You were scared, so you took her college fund. You were scared, so you erased her mother's memory and painted the walls yellow." "I made mistakes," she said. She was crying now. "I know. I'm sorry, and I'm so sorry. Please, I'll give it back. I'll sell the house, whatever you want. Just don't take my family. Don't take Derek. Don't take Thomas." Thomas, my son, her grandson, the child she'd wanted so badly. I reached into my bag. I pulled out a second envelope. I laid it on top of the will. "Here's the deal," I said. "I file today, or you do exactly what I say. No negotiation, no second chances." She nodded. She was sobbing now, mascara running, this pathetic, broken woman. I didn't feel sorry for her. I didn't feel anything. "You're going to sign over the house," I said. "The original house, my house. You're going to transfer the investments with interest. You're going to write a letter to Derek explaining everything. Not my version, yours. What you did, why you did it, how you lied." "No," she whispered. "Please. He'll hate me." "Yes," I agreed. "He will. And you're going to do one more thing." I stood up. I walked to the window. I looked at the backyard where my dad used to grill, where Linda had put a pool. "You're never going to see Thomas again," I said. "Not a birthday, not a holiday, not a photo. You're going to disappear from our lives completely. And if you ever contact him, if you ever come near him, if you ever even mention his name, I file the lawsuit. And you go to prison, and everyone knows what you did." She was crying so hard she couldn't speak. She was begging, incoherent. "Please, please, my grandson. He's all I have. Please." I turned around. I looked at her. "Your son is coming home tomorrow," I said. "He's going to read your letter, and then he's going to know who you are, and you're going to know what it feels like to lose everything." I picked up the will. I walked to the door. "Wait," she choked out. "Sarah, wait, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Please, have mercy." I stopped. I looked back at her, this woman who'd made me homeless, who'd made me sleep in a car, who'd made me fight for every single thing I had. "I was 16, I said. "I was alone. I was cold. I asked you for mercy. Do you remember what you said?" She didn't answer. She just cried. "You said I had 2 weeks, I said. "I'm giving you until tomorrow." I closed the door behind me. Derek came home from Seattle the next day. I was at work when he landed. I made sure of that. I wanted him to be alone when he found the letter. I got home at 6:30 p.m. Derek was sitting on the couch. The letter was on the coffee table, crumpled, like he'd read it and thrown it and picked it up again. His face was gray. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in a day. "She did this," he said. It wasn't a question. Yes. She made you homeless. At 16, after your dad died. Yes. She forged the will. She stole your inheritance. She lied to everyone. Yes. He looked at me. His eyes were red. He'd been crying. I could tell he'd been crying for hours. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. His voice was quiet. Too quiet. Why did I have to find out from a letter? From her? Because I needed to be sure. Because I needed to protect myself. Because I didn't know if you'd believe me. Sarah, his voice broke. I would have believed you. You would have defended her, I said. It wasn't cruel, it was true. She's your mother. You love her. You thought she was good. I couldn't risk you warning her. I couldn't risk you choosing her. He stood up. He started pacing, back and forth, like he couldn't contain himself. So you married me? He said. You married me to get to her. You had a baby, our son, as part of some plan? I could have lied. I should have lied. But I was tired. I was so tired. At first, I said. Yes, at first that was part of it, but Derek, At first? He stopped pacing. He looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Not hurt, not betrayal, rage. You planned this for years. You moved in with me. You met my family. You let me fall in love with you. You let me believe we were building something real. And it was all, what? Research? Revenge? It wasn't all, don't. He held up his hand. His voice was shaking. Don't tell me it became real. Don't tell me you love me. Don't tell me any of that because I don't know what's true anymore. I don't know if anything was true. He grabbed his keys. He walked to the door. Where are you going? I don't know. I can't be here right now. I can't look at you. He left. That was 3 hours ago. He texted once. Staying at Mike's. Need time. Don't call. I sat on the couch where he'd been sitting. I looked at the crumpled letter. I looked at my phone where Linda had texted an hour ago. Harold knows everything. He's leaving me. Are you happy? I didn't answer. I don't know if I will. I got what I wanted. The house is mine now. Linda signed it over this morning before Derek even landed. She also signed over the investments. I have everything my dad wanted me to have. I'm sitting in an apartment I bought with my own money, with documents worth millions on my kitchen table, and my husband is at his friend's house because he can't look at me, and my son is kicking inside me. He kicks when I'm stressed, like he's trying to tell me something, and I don't know if any of this was worth it. I haven't slept. I keep checking my phone. Derek hasn't texted again. Linda hasn't either. The house is mine. The money is mine. The justice is mine. I keep thinking about my dad's coffee cup, the way it spilled, the shadow it made. I keep thinking about how some stains never come out. You can paint over them, renovate around them, pretend they're not there, but they're always there. I just got another text. Not from Derek, not from Linda, from Harold. I read her letter. I read your will. I don't know who to believe anymore, but I know my wife of 6 years is a stranger. And I know you destroyed her. And I know I'm supposed to hate you for it. But I keep thinking about what I would have done if someone made my daughter sleep in a car. I think I would have done worse. I don't know how to answer that. I don't know if I should. Thomas is kicking, hard, like he's trying to get out. I keep thinking about Linda, alone in that house with the yellow walls and the chandelier, waiting for a son who won't come, waiting for a grandson she'll never meet. I keep thinking about Derek, who loved me, who I loved, who I broke because I needed to win. I keep thinking about that 16-year-old girl in the car, cold and hungry and alone, and I don't know if I saved her or if I became the thing she was most afraid of. My phone just buzzed again. Derek. I'm coming home. We need to talk. But Sarah, I don't know if I can forgive you. And I don't know if you can forgive yourself. And I don't know if there's enough left to build anything on, but I'm coming. Because I promised. Because I meant that part, even if you didn't. I don't know what to say, and I don't know what to do. I'm going to wait. I'm going to sit here with my documents and my millions and my kicking son and my empty apartment, and I'm going to wait for my husband to come home and tell me what happens next. Because that's the thing about revenge. It doesn't end with winning. It ends with you standing in the wreckage, holding what you wanted, wondering why it still feels like nothing. Linda texted again. I'm moving to Arizona. I won't bother you. I just wanted to say goodbye. I didn't answer, but I looked at Thomas for a long time after. He's sleeping. He has her eyes. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know anything. Edit. Stop telling me to forgive her. Stop telling me to talk to Derek. Stop telling me I'm a bad mom. I know all of it. I just needed someone to know what happened, that's all. Edit 2. Derek just pulled into the driveway. I can see his headlights through the window. He's sitting in his car. He's been sitting there for 5 minutes. I don't know if he's going to come inside. I don't know if I want him to. I'll update when I can.